My name is Najma, and for as long as I can remember, life has been nothing but a series of tests. My husband abandoned me when our daughter, Liba, was just 2 years old. He left without explanation, without remorse, and never once looked back. Many women in my position would have chased after him, demanded answers, or tried to drag him back. But I chose not to. I decided my dignity was worth more than begging for a love that had already died. My only focus, my only source of strength, was my daughter. Liba became the center of my existence. She was the light in my darkness, the reason I forced myself out of bed every morning, even when despair weighed me down like chains. In those early years, survival was hard. I worked tirelessly in other people's homes, washing dishes, scrubbing floors, doing laundry until my fingers cracked. Every day, my body screamed with exhaustion, and sometimes, in the privacy of my small, dimly lit room, I cried to God. I begged him to ease my burden, to let me rest. Yet every time I looked into Liba's innocent eyes, I found renewed strength. Her gaze seemed to whisper, "Don't give up, mother. I need you." I vowed to myself that she would never feel the absence of her father. I would provide her with everything within my power: good food, decent clothes, and, most importantly, education. Even if it meant working myself to the bone, I would ensure she grew up proud, capable, and unbroken. I refused to let her see me beg from anyone. Whatever struggles I faced them alone, shielding her from the ugliness of poverty. But as Liba grew older, my worries grew with her. She blossomed into a strikingly beautiful young girl with a fair complexion, soft features, and long dark hair that framed her innocent face. While her beauty made me proud, it also made me fearful. I knew too well how society treated women, especially those without a man to protect them. In our neighborhood, whispers followed us everywhere. Some women smirked mockingly, while men stared too long with hungry eyes. Children sometimes laughed cruelly, saying, "You don't have a father, you're incomplete." I ignored them all, telling myself that as long as Liba kept her focus, she could rise above this cruelty. My purpose was clear: to give her a life better than mine, a life untouched by betrayal and hardship. Yet deep inside, I feared the world would not allow her innocence to remain safe for long. As Liba grew into her teenage years, my protective instincts became sharper. I worked quietly, avoided gossip, and tried to keep her away from unnecessary social interactions. Yet, no matter how hard I tried, I could not control the way people looked at her, or at us. It was as if being a fatherless household made us public property, a story for others to twist and dissect. I bore the humiliation silently, but every night I prayed that Liba's future would not mirror my own shattered past. Then one afternoon, a man came to our door who would change everything. He introduced himself as Zaman, a wealthy businessman from the city. His clothes, his manner, even the car he had parked outside spoke of power and privilege. Without hesitation, he declared, "I like your daughter. I want her to be my wife." My heart stopped. Liba was still young, still too innocent to fully understand marriage. I stammered, trying to hide my shock. "But she is just a child," I whispered. Zaman smiled with unnerving calm. "That is exactly why I want her. Younger girls adjust more easily. They do not question, they do not argue. They accept life as it is. I will give her every luxury: jewelry, clothes, servants, a car, a mansion. And you too, Najma, will never want for anything. I will send you money each month so you never have to work again." The words sounded tempting, like a door suddenly opening after years of being trapped in darkness. But something about his tone unsettled me. I asked carefully, "What is it you like about her? She is just a girl." His reply made me shiver. "Her innocence," he said bluntly. "That is the most valuable thing. And besides, people in this neighborhood gossip about you two. If this marriage happens, your reputation will be safe. No one will dare trouble you again." Then he added one final condition. "Once she is married, don't visit her too often. I don't like interference. I will bring her to you only when I see fit." A storm raged inside me. Was this truly a blessing from God or a trap disguised as kindness? Yet staring at my tired hands, remembering the endless humiliation we had endured, I convinced myself it was fate's way of lifting Liba into security. For the sake of her honor, I accepted the proposal, though my heart felt strangely heavy. Once Zaman's proposal was accepted, everything moved at a pace that left me breathless. He wasted no time in fixing the wedding. 2 days from now, he announced firmly, as if it were a business deal rather than a sacred union. I wanted to object, to ask for time to prepare, but his determination left me with no room to argue. Those 2 days vanished in a blur of errands. I bought Liba a bright new dress and a modest set of jewelry, spending beyond what I could afford, but I wanted her to look like a bride, not a sacrifice. Liba, still caught up in girlish dreams, was overjoyed. She twirled in front of the mirror, her eyes sparkling. "Mama, I'll finally be like the other girls. I'll wear pretty clothes, jewelry, and become a bride." She giggled, clapping her hands together. Her innocence pierced my heart. She thought marriage was about dresses and celebrations, about walking into a new home like a princess. She did not understand the weight of responsibility, the bond, or the pain that sometimes came with it. When I tried to gently ask, "You know what marriage really means, Liba?" She replied brightly, "Of course! A girl goes to her husband's home, they eat together, go out together, and take care of each other." Her answer made me grip my head in despair. How could I explain the harsh realities in just 2 days? The wedding itself was muted. There were no large gatherings, no noise, no celebrations. It was done quietly, almost secretly, as if hiding from the world. Perhaps that suited Zaman, who preferred control and silence. When the time came to send Liba off, my heart felt like it was being torn apart. I placed a Quran in her hands, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "May God protect you, my daughter." That night, I tried to console myself. I told my weary heart that I had secured her future, that she was safe in a grand house, and that my years of struggle had finally ended. I extinguished the lamp, ready to rest for the first time in years. But my peace was short-lived. A thunderous knock rattled the door, sharp and urgent, as if the police were demanding entry. My chest tightened. Trembling, I opened the door, and there stood Liba. My newlywed daughter, who had left just an hour ago, was back. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear, as though she had fled from something unspeakable. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. Just an hour earlier, I had sent my daughter away as a bride, praying for her happiness. And now she was back, trembling like a leaf, her face drained of color. "Liba?" I gasped, pulling her inside. "What happened? Why are you here? You should be with your husband." But she said nothing. Her lips parted as though she wanted to speak, yet no words came. Her eyes only searched mine desperately, pleading for protection. My heart pounded. "Did they throw you out?" I asked, my voice breaking. She shook her head firmly, but "No, Mama. They are good people. I ran away." Her words pierced me like a knife. "You what? You ran away?" I whispered in disbelief. "But why? What could have frightened you so much in just 1 hour?" Before she could answer, a car screeched to a halt outside. Heavy footsteps approached, and then Zaman stormed toward us. His expression was a mix of anger and wounded pride. "What nonsense is this?" he thundered. "She told me she was going to the bathroom, and instead she slipped out and ran. If I hadn't noticed her leaving, she would have disappeared. Do you know how humiliating this is?" I tried to calm him, but his fury only grew. "What have you taught her, Najma? Is this how you raised her? To disgrace her husband on the very first night?" His words stung me, though I had no defense. "She is young," I said weakly. Maybe she was nervous. She doesn't understand yet. Please forgive her. Zaman's tone softened only slightly, though his pride was clearly wounded. I treated her with respect. I didn't even raise my voice, let alone my hand. I brought her into my home with dignity, gave her everything, and this is how she behaves? Am I some kind of monster that a wife flees from me within an hour? His words filled me with shame. My daughter's actions, however innocent, had placed us both in a position where he questioned her upbringing and my worth as a mother. I turned to Liba, anger boiling beneath my skin. "This is unacceptable. You are married now. That house is your home. This man is your husband. You cannot run back here as though you are a child afraid of the dark. Return with him and don't repeat this disgrace." With a heavy heart, I pushed her gently towards Zaman. He gave me a final, sharp look before leading her away. I stood at the doorway long after they left, unease swirling inside me. I told myself she was simply frightened by the sudden change, that time would heal her nerves, yet a quiet voice inside whispered that something was deeply wrong. Days passed after that first shocking incident, and though I forced myself to believe it had been nothing more than nerves, an uneasy weight pressed on my chest. I busied myself with work, tried to silence the whispers of doubt, and prayed my daughter was adjusting. But deep down, I feared her silence on that first night had meant more than simple fear. A week later, just as the neighborhood lay quiet under the blanket of night, a furious pounding rattled my door again. My heart sank instantly, recognizing the rhythm of desperation. Trembling, I opened it, and there stood Liba once more. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, her hands clutching each other as though they alone kept her from collapsing. "Liba," I cried, pulling her inside. "Not again. Why are you here?" She said nothing. Her lips trembled, but no sound came. She only looked at me with the same hollow, haunted expression I had seen before. My anger, fear, and confusion collided all at once. "Do you realize what you are doing? Do you understand the shame you are bringing upon us?" Before she could respond, footsteps thundered outside. Zaman appeared, his anger sharper this time, his patience clearly stretched thin. "Enough is enough," he roared, his eyes blazing. "What kind of madness is this? A wife who runs away twice in 1 week? What kind of upbringing is this, Najma? Do you know the humiliation I face because of her?" I tried to pacify him, but his fury would not subside. "I have provided her with comfort, luxury, and respect. I haven't even raised my hand against her, and still, she runs? Tell me, do I look like a beast to her? Should I parade in the streets wearing horns so people know why my wife flees me in terror?" His words pierced my heart with shame. I looked at my daughter, anger rising in me too. "Why, Liba? Why do you do this? He has given you a home, a name, and honor, and you run like a fugitive? Do you want people to call you unstable? Do you want him to divorce you and leave you branded for life?" Zaman's voice dropped to a deadly calm. "If this happens again, I will divorce her. I cannot let my reputation be trampled by a girl who doesn't know the meaning of marriage." As he took her away once again, my knees weakened. I whispered desperate prayers, convincing myself that she only needed more time to adjust. But as the door closed behind them, dread gnawed at me. My daughter's silence screamed louder than words. Something unspeakable was hiding in that silence, and I was too blind or too afraid to see it. After the second escape, I scolded Liba harshly, convincing myself that discipline was the only way to keep her marriage intact. I told her she could not continue to run like a frightened child. That society would crush her if she carried the stain of divorce. Yet my heart was restless. I lay awake at night, replaying her terrified eyes, her trembling lips, her silence that seemed too heavy for a girl of her age. A week later, on her birthday, the unease grew unbearable. My chest felt tight, as if my heart was warning me of something terrible. Finally, I decided I could no longer wait for news. I would go see her myself. I prepared a small box of sweets, telling myself it was an innocent excuse, a mother bringing her daughter a gift. But in truth, I needed to see her face, to feel reassured she was truly fine. When I reached Zaman's grand house, I knocked softly at the heavy door. After a moment, it creaked open, and there stood Liba. But instead of joy at seeing me, she looked startled, as though caught in the middle of a dangerous secret. She clutched a small bag tightly in her hand, her eyes darting nervously. "Liba," I whispered, my throat dry. "Where are you going?" Her lips quivered before she admitted, "I was coming to you, Mama. I was going to run away again." The sweet slipped from my trembling hand, the box crashing against the step. My blood turned cold. If I had not arrived, she would have repeated the same desperate act for a third time, and this time, Zaman's patience would have shattered beyond repair. I quickly pushed her back inside, closing the door behind us. "Are you out of your mind?" I hissed in panic. "If he catches you again, he will never forgive you. He will throw you out and stain you with divorce. Tell me, what is it that terrifies you so much? Why can you not stay in that house for even a few days?" For a long moment, she said nothing, her eyes filling with tears. Then she whispered so quietly I barely heard her. Because it isn't just him, Mama. There are others. Her voice shook, as though the words themselves were poison. My heart pounded violently, but I forced myself to remain calm. I placed my hands on her shoulders and said firmly, "Tell me everything. Whatever it is, you must tell me now." Her eyes, wide and haunted, locked onto mine. The truth she was about to reveal would shatter me in ways I never imagined. Liba's lips trembled as though the words themselves might betray her. She hesitated, glancing toward the closed door, then back at me. Her eyes brimmed with tears, and her voice came out in a choked whisper. "Mama, I don't have one husband. I have 7. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. My knees weakened, and I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. "What nonsense are you speaking, child? You are married to Zaman. He is your husband, no one else." She shook her head violently, her tears spilling freely. "No, Mama, you don't understand. Zaman brings different men into my room every night. He tells me each of them is also my husband, that I must not resist, that this is my duty. They say, 'We all married you. We all have rights over you.' I tried to scream, to protest, but they threatened me. They said if I told anyone, they would hurt you. They would bury me somewhere no one would find me." Her words struck me like daggers. My sweet, innocent daughter, barely more than a child, was living in a nightmare. My heart twisted with guilt, realizing that in my desperation to secure her future, I had handed her over to a monster. I pulled her into my arms, holding her trembling body against my chest. She sobbed uncontrollably, the fear spilling out in broken sentences. "I couldn't bear it, Mama. That's why I kept running to you. But you sent me back. You didn't believe me." Her words sliced through me. Shame burned my skin, hot and merciless. She had been begging for rescue all along, and I, blinded by fear of society's judgment, had ignored the signs. My daughter's silence, her escapes, her terrified eyes, all were desperate cries for help that I had silenced with lectures about honor. I stroked her hair, whispering, "Forgive me, Liba. Forgive me for not listening. But I swear to you, I will not let this continue. You will never go back to that house again. I will protect you, even if it costs me my life." Liba clung to me like a drowning soul, her sobs shaking us both. In that moment, I knew there was no turning back. I could not save my reputation, nor could I undo the past, but I could save her future. With trembling hands, I wiped my tears and said firmly, "Tonight, we will fight back. I will take you away from these monsters, and this time, I will not let anyone silence us." That night, after hearing Liba's soul-crushing confession, I sat awake long after she had cried herself to sleep in my arms. My heart was heavy with guilt, but beneath the weight of shame burned a fierce fire. I had failed to protect her once. I would not fail again. No wealth, no gossiping neighbors, no fear of disgrace mattered anymore. What mattered was my daughter's safety and dignity. At dawn, I made my decision. After ensuring Liba returned to Zaman's house under the pretense of normalcy, I set out for the police station. My steps were unsteady, but my resolve was like steel. I demanded to see the inspector and, when admitted, poured out everything, every detail Liba had confided. My voice broke as I described how Zaman had lured us with promises of security, only to trap my child in a nightmare of exploitation. At first, the inspector's face was unreadable. Then, as he processed my words, his expression hardened. "Do you realize the gravity of what you're saying?" he asked. "Yes," I replied firmly. "I am talking about my daughter's life. She is still a child, and every night she is being destroyed. If you don't help us tonight, she may not survive this ordeal." Something in my desperate tone stirred him. He called in 2 officers immediately, repeating my account with clipped precision. "This is not just domestic abuse, Basa," he told them. "This reeks of organized crime. We cannot waste time." I gave them the address, even showed them the marriage certificate, proof that Zaman had hidden his cruelty behind a lawful facade. The inspector then issued quick orders. A team would accompany me that very night. "We'll conduct a raid," he said, "but you must ensure your daughter is ready to open the door when we arrive. The element of surprise is our only weapon." Tears welled in my eyes as I clasped my hands together in gratitude. Thank you. I promise she will be ready. Walking back, I rehearsed the plan in my mind. That evening, I returned quietly to Zaman's house, pretending it was an ordinary visit. In hushed tones, I told Laiba the truth, that the police would come at night, that she must keep her courage and open the door when she heard the knock. Her eyes widened with fear, but when I held her hands and whispered, "This is our only chance," she nodded bravely. As darkness fell, I prayed like never before. This night would decide whether my daughter lived in freedom or remained trapped in hell. Night descended with a heavy silence, broken only by the pounding of my heart. Every second felt stretched, each moment carrying the weight of destiny. I sat with the police team in their van, parked discreetly a short distance from Zaman's house. My palms were clammy, and I kept whispering silent prayers, asking God to give my daughter courage and to give me the strength to face whatever awaited us. Finally, the inspector signaled. 2 officers moved stealthily toward the house while the rest of us prepared to rush in. My chest tightened as we approached the door. Would Laiba be brave enough to open it? Would she recognize our knock among the countless sounds of fear she had endured? The first knock echoed sharply in the night. For a terrifying moment, there was no response. My breath caught in my throat, then, slowly, the latch turned and the door creaked open. There stood Laiba, her face pale but her eyes glistening with determination. Relief washed over me, and before I could embrace her, the officers surged past us into the house. What they found inside was exactly as Laiba had described. Zaman lounged arrogantly in the living room with 6 other men, their expressions turning from surprise to panic as the officers stormed in with weapons drawn. The inspector's voice rang out, commanding them to stay still. Within moments, the men were pinned against the wall, their hands restrained, their bravado stripped away. Laiba clung to me, trembling, as the officers searched the house. Hidden documents, false marriage papers, and photographs surfaced, evidence of a larger network that used marriage as a mask to exploit vulnerable girls. 2 of the men were already wanted criminals. Others had charges of theft, smuggling, and trafficking pending against them. Zaman, once so smug and composed, now looked pale and broken, his voice faltering as he tried to deny everything. The inspector silenced him with cold authority. "Your lies end tonight. We've heard the girl's testimony. We've seen the evidence. You'll spend the rest of your life answering for this." I wrapped my arms around Laiba, who shook uncontrollably. Her tears soaked my shoulder, but for the first time in months, those tears carried relief rather than despair. "It's over, Mama," she whispered. "They can't hurt me anymore." I held her tighter, my own tears streaming freely. "Yes, my child. It's over. You are safe now." For the first time in years, I felt a glimpse of peace. The nightmare that had haunted us both was finally breaking apart under the weight of justice. The days following the raid felt like waking from a long, terrible nightmare. The police kept their promise. Within 2 weeks, legal proceedings were swift and merciless. Zaman and his accomplices were charged with human trafficking, assault, and fraud. The court stripped away his wealth and arrogance, exposing him for what he truly was, a predator hiding behind the mask of respectability. Watching him stand helpless in the dock, I felt no triumph, only a somber relief that justice had finally begun its course. For Laiba, the scars ran deeper. She was free, but fear lingered in her eyes, surfacing in quiet moments when she sat alone. At night, she sometimes jolted awake, haunted by shadows of the men who had invaded her life. In those moments, I would rush to her side, hold her close, and whisper, "You are safe now. No one will ever touch you again." Slowly, she began to believe me. Slowly, the trembling in her hands eased. I made a vow that her life would not end in victimhood. I returned to work, cleaning houses and sewing clothes, but with renewed determination. Every coin I earned went into Laiba's education. I enrolled her in school, determined that she would rise far above the darkness that had tried to consume her. At first, she was hesitant, shy among her classmates, but I saw a quiet flame growing in her. She studied with diligence, pouring her pain into her books, transforming wounds into wisdom. Each time she brought home a good grade, her face lit up with a smile that reminded me of the child she once was, pure, unbroken, full of promise. One evening, as we sat together over her homework, she looked at me and said, "Mama, I want to become a lawyer. I want to fight for girls like me, girls who are trapped and silenced. I want to make sure no one else suffers what I suffered." My eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of pride. "Yes, my child," I said, my voice firm with conviction. "You will. You will stand tall, and I will be with you every step of the way." The world had once mocked us for being incomplete, for living without a man, without protection. But now I understood the truth. We were not incomplete and at all. Together, Liba and I were stronger than any storm, stronger than any man who had tried to break us. Our story was no longer about despair, but about survival, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter.